I was 6 years old, and I was in the second grade at Manette School over on the east side of Bremerton. And the teacher had gone to the Kitsap County Fair, and she had seen a picture of me and my grandmother. And it was on an old log from Ole Man House, which was the biggest longhouse here in Kitsap County. And so the teacher came back to school, and she said, "We have a celebrity in our room." And I'm looking around wondering who this person is. And it turned out to be me, because of my lineage to Chief Seattle. And so it turned out that I was popular for 5 minutes until the bell rang. And then I got popular in a different way. I got chased home and spit at and called dirty old Indian. And I went home crying, and my mom came to the door and she said, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "I'm not Indian like you, I'm sweet like my daddy." And she said, "You didn't get them big brown eyes from your Swedish father." My dad had blue eyes. I said, I wish I had blue eyes like Daddy. She said, "Shut up and be glad they're straight and you can see out of them." I'm going to crack up now. I was 50 years old. And my son next door, he lives in the house next door, he's a carver, Indian wood carver. And does beautiful work. And I got some masks up there that he made.
Wow.
And I knew I had to validate his heritage. So he had a friend named David Boxley, who is Simshian, and he's known all over the world. He's done 74 or 79 story poles all over the world. And so I met him, and he said, "I'm having a big potlatch in Seattle." And I said, "When and what do you got to do?" And I said, he told me, he said, "You got to be, if you're going to have a potlatch, we're going to have a potlatch, and you're going to come and you're going to have a naming ceremony, then you need to bring enough gifts for everybody." And I'm going, holy cow, how am I going to do that, you know? Yeah, it's a big party that you go to, and you want to take enough gifts. If you have something that, you got to give away enough gifts to be somebody. And it's just something you have to do, whether you want to or not, you know. So I decided I was going to have one, and if David would let me have it at his, and it was over in Burien in Seattle someplace. And so, being from the Duwamish tribe, I decided, that's a good place to have it over there. And I got the head of the Duwamish tribe to come and do what she had to do. She had to call my name out 4 times. So she called out the name and had to turn to east, west, north, and south. And then the audience calls it back to you, to give it back to you, give it to me. So anyway, it was I had posters made up of my lineage, and I'm a quilter, so my quilting group came over and and we rolled posters up and tied them with raffia, and had like 5 boxes full, because I gave away 1,600 and something, and yeah, it was quite the deal, and and it had my whole lineage on it from Chief Seattle down, all in pictures, with my mom and my grandma. And
how did you end up moving into the weaving, into the cedar weaving?
Well, I went to Alaska for a week. I was taking care of my mother in the house down below, taking care of my hubby that was a quad, and my mom, she was in her 80s.
Right.
And I was going to go boo if I didn't get away to do something for myself, So I wound up going to Alaska with my son David, my number 2 son. And we flew into Juneau, and then we had to take a little plane to out on the coast there someplace that was, I can't remember the name of the place. But we stayed in a bed and breakfast, and we went out on a fishing boat. We had a rowboat. Well, it had a motor. And my son and I, we got in it, and we were driving, and he says, "Oh my gosh, I forgot the bait, Mom, because we were going to go fishing." And so he pulled over on an island, and this is Alaska, and he says, "Why don't you get out here and you can go look around?" And I said, "Don't forget where you left me," And then it dawned on me, I'm on an island, and this is Alaska with the bears and all that stuff, And I'm going, I'm not going to think about that. So I'm looking around, and I'm looking up at the sky, and there's like there's like, I'm not kidding, there was like 50 eagles flying in there, squawking, and
Right.
I'm just enthralled. And then all of a sudden, I get this thing in my head. I hear this voice. I look down at my feet at first. It's a big eagle feather on my feet, and I went to pick it up. I had a hot bolt of heat went up my arm, almost took me down on my knees, and I heard this big booming voice in my head that said, "Mary Lou, it's okay that you're native. I made you the way you are." It gave me a verse out of the Bible. It says, "You shall mount up on wings of eagles. You shall run and not be weary. You shall walk and not faint." And I was just absolutely blown away. And so here comes David back with the boat, and I hide my eagle feather in my jacket because I don't want to tell him about it as such a private thing, you know. And so we went fishing, and we didn't catch any fish. And we got back to the room, and all I wanted to do was just go sit in my room and think about what happened to me. It was just amazing. Because the first thing that happened to me when I got home was this lady that was Simpson. She lived here in Port Orchard, and I met her through David Boxley. And she came over. I ran into her in the store one day, and she said, "Mary," she said, "I'm having a class at my house. Would you like to learn how to make a basket?" So I said, "Okay, I'd love to." And so she told me how much it was going to be and what time and everything. And so I went over there, and I made this basket. And, you know, you're supposed to give your first basket away. And so I gave it to my husband. so he could keep it for me. And I showed it to her what I'd done. And I got the basket. I should have it here showing you on the film. But what happened was I said, "How did I do?" And I made a lid for it. I had a little knob on the top and everything. And she said, "You need to go to your own tribe." And I said, "Well, where do I go?" And she said, "Go to Suquamish and get a hold of Eddie Carrier." And I said, "Okay." So I called up at the Suquamish. I knew what Suquamish was because all my family was from there. And so he didn't call me for 3 weeks. And I'm one of those people that when I want to do something, I want to do it now. I don't want to hurry up and wait.
It is down in Indianola, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And so he finally called me, and he told me how much it was going to cost. And this was a long haul from here. I put my husband to bed on Monday nights. I went, and I put him to bed, and I put the TV on for him, and so he could watch TV while he was in bed, and make sure he was safe and everything. And I drive all the way up there. I did it for almost 3 years. Studied under Eddie. And he tells me now when I see him, he said, "You were my best student." I said, "Oh, you're just kidding me." And he said, "No, I'm dead serious." He comes stops by to see me every once in a while. And then I've seen him lately because I've been up that way. And so anyway, he taught me, started out with going out and picking up the bare grass and teaching me everything that I had to do and had to know. And I made my first basket. And this one took me almost a year. Wow. And it's cedar root. I had to go out and dig the roots. You get about 5 or 6 feet from a tree and dig in the ground, and you find roots that are about the size of your finger here. And then you dig them up and get them as long as you can get them, usually, this 3-4 feet.
Right.
And then you take the bark off the outside, and you split them, and then you have to make all the pieces the same. And then you get I forget what an awl, and you start poking, and with the pieces that aren't straight, you use, it has, they're like this, and then you weave around them. You can take the cedar, and you can put it in a kettle, like a iron kettle, like a skillet. I had a skillet.
Right. And
then I put water in there and put a lid on it and let it sit for 2 weeks, and that's what it turns it black.
Wow.
There's a chemical in the metal that makes the cedar black.
Wow.
And they have the same thing with the red, but I didn't do the red, but there's something in the woods that you pick and make the red. I used red dye. It's my favorite thing to do, but I haven't dug any roots lately, so This is kind of a cool basket.
What is this?
This is cattail out of the
Cattail
made
basket.
out of cattail. Yeah, and it's one of my favorite. And I was going to sell it, and then I thought, no, I'm going to keep this one because I really like it.
And is it cedar bark woven in?
Cedar bark. Yeah, just the inner bark.
Right. And the fronds are all woven cattail fronds?
Yeah, I just wound it
Right.
as I went around it.
We're going to go see the Duwamish Longhouse, which is in West Seattle. But the whole floor is all based on Mary's designs.
I designed it, and I also worked on it. And all the cedar that it's made out of is from the building, when we built the building. We cut the pieces and made it for the floor. And the thing is, when they asked me to the architect, he said, Mary, could you make me 2-3 pictures of a design for the floor?
Uh-huh.
I said, are you kidding me? And he said, no. He said, you think you can? I said, yeah, I'll give it a try.
Right.
So I went home and I made him 3 designs. And the one he picked out is really strange.
Huh.
Because I walked in there after we got it all done, and somebody was sitting on the floor there talking. The guy that I can't think of his name. He's getting old. It's terrible. Anyway, he was sitting there telling people, well, this floor was designed by Mary Lou and blah, blah, blah. And he went on and but a story had come out of it. There's mountain designs on both sides.
Uh-huh.
We're between 2 mountain ranges, the
Right.
Olympics and the Cascades. And so, and then the squares going in is a plant. It stands for a certain plant, and it's healing.
Huh.
It's healing in our culture.
Right.
And I didn't know that. I just put these stuff together, you know.
So it was almost an intuitive, sort of instinctual design where you just
Yeah, I
you
just
knew
did
this.
it, and it came a story come out of it. It's just absolutely.
wonderful.
I mean, I walked into the building and the guy standing there telling the story with all these people there, and I'm going, where did he get that from? And then he's pointing out to everybody, you know.
Right.
And it just blew me away.
That's amazing.
So I thought all I could think of was, geez, I'm doing the right thing.
So I noticed a lot of the baskets you have some pretty complex patterns in them. How did you weave those in with just like separately dyed cords?
It's kind of cool. What you do, you before you put the needle over with the main piece that's on the front here, in that little bunch of where did that piece go? That little round piece with the little cattails, the little tail sticking out.
Yeah, there it is.
So what you do, you start out with all these little pieces like this, but they're long, about like this long, and this is your sewer. And so what you do, you have a needle on this, and it's real long, and so you sew and stick this through. And if you want to make a design, then you have to have this piece that's special, is colored, whatever color you want to dye. So you'd have to dye it black, red, or there's a gold, kind of goldy yellow, and then there's a white that we use, which is bear grass. It's white, and it dries, and so that's how we get the white. But yeah, so you just make up a design and on a piece of paper. I have to do it on a piece of paper because I want to make sure that it's they're evenly spaced, and so it's really fun to have a design on them.
Right.
So it makes them pretty, and people like it. All these baskets you see in here are made by me, plus the clothing and lampshades.
Well,